Not just they can do that on our airwaves, but that they can do that as one of us, as badge-carrying employees, as paid contributors to our sacred airwaves.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, let's start off the show by taking a moment to get down on one knee and praise the fact that we are on the sacred airwaves this morning.
I'm genuflecting in the general direction of St. Louis Public Radio. And Diane Ream's voice box. I collect them. Some people collect beer steins, some people collect baseball cards. I collect the used pieces of Diane Ream's automated voice box.
That is John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. By the way, John, I'm not trying to give a plug for our fourth radio station, which is not necessarily a radio station yet, but it's a streaming channel, God Squad, godsquad.cloud. Godsquad.cloud, I don't know who's behind it, but they've come up with some very ingenious things. First off, they have the prayer line, which, once again, a couple prayers in there yesterday was sort of nice. Pastor Brad, I don't even know who that guy is. You call the 25 God Squad line, 25 GODSQUAD. I don't know what the numbers are. You figured out. 25 God Squad, and you can leave a prayer request, and Pastor Brad will grant your prayer request. But the second line we have is, it was actually sort of nice because I actually called it myself last night because it's the I'm sorry line, the 557 I'm sorry, and I apologize to someone that yesterday I didn't treat properly. So I called my own line, not my own line, the God Squad line. It's not my line, it's the God Squad line. I'm sorry, that's 557 I'm sorry. And people go, 557? Where's that? Believe it or not, that's the new St. Louis area code. That's the new area code that encompasses not just like the 314, which is the core city area, and 636, which is the outlying areas. 557 is like what they call the overlay area code, which is if you get a new telephone in your house, which I don't think anybody does anymore, but if you get a new cell phone, chances are you might end up with a 557 exchange. So anyway, having said that.
So Brad, hold on. I was just daydreaming while you were talking. You're saying that if you're overlaid, you should call the I'm sorry line.
Yeah.
And then you should ask for prayers.
Matter of fact, but more importantly, if you're underlaid, you should pray.
I was going to say, yeah, and that doesn't describe anybody who listens to our show, Brad, because we're pretty much the cream of the crop. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Our listeners are.
Okay, that guy right there, who never will say anything negative about me, never make any crazy quips about me, never make fun of the fact that I used to get my hair cut at Ronnie's Barbershop in the Bell Park Plaza. He will never say anything like that about me. His name is John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. Spell that out in your computer. Type in your browser, JOHNCOMBEST, put a .com after it, you get his site. It's an aggregation site. He's been doing this for 22 plus years. Every single day he's knocking out the stories that you should be concerned about, and there's usually 20, 30, 40. Remember, we talked about this. At some point in time, you had 50 up there. Could that be true?
Yeah, here and there. It's, I'm not a efforting metrics kind of guy. But yeah, there's a few headlines up there once in a while, Brad.
But we distill it down to three different things. We bring this guy in. His name is...
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what does he do?
Now on with the countdown.
Counts them down. And we start with...
In third place...
Fortuitously, Brad, you might want to call the prayer line because this was just so fortuitous. Driving through town yesterday, it's... Meet the teacher season, with the young ones. An impromptu karaoke session breaks out in my backseat among my offspring. They start singing, "Working 9 to 5." Pause the story. Get up this morning, do a little bit of headline aggregation. Brad, Dolly Parton is coming to Missouri as part of her. Well, hold on. I'll wait. What do you think Dolly Parton is coming to Missouri for, Brad? And not just to see you.
She's going out to Ann's Bra Shop in O'Fallon?
She is. Actually, she's the new spokeswoman for it. And she's also going out to Hollywood Casino. And she's jiggling a jackpot in people's faces and seeing if she can get a background check. No, Brad. She's coming. That's a very good guess, though. But after going to Ann's Bra Shop, She is going to Kansas City on August 27th. She's got this thing called the Imagination Library. I think we might have mentioned it once or twice on the air. Are you familiar with this?
I am not.
Okay, she started this thing with the Dollywood Foundation. I guess she started it in Eastern Tennessee, either Eastern or Western Tennessee, a long time ago to improve childhood literacy. And she's got this thing called Imagination Library now, where if you sign up for it, if you're a child under 5 years of age or under, you get a book in your mailbox. How quaint is that, Brad? The U.S. Postal Service. You get a book in your mailbox every month that helps young kids read, and it starts with I think they start with The Little Engine That Could, I think, and then it goes up to 5-year-olds get a book about what it's like to start kindergarten. Anyway, here's how Missouri plays into it. A number of states have essentially subsidized, I guess you could say, the distribution of these books. So in other words, there's a corporation actually pays for the books. And I forgot the publisher. I should have it in front of me right now. Penguin Random House actually publishes the books with subsidies from the Dollywood Foundation. And then the state of Missouri subsidizes the mailing of the books to anybody who signs up. The cost to distribute books is $26 a year per child for everybody who signs up. By the way, this piece is brought to us by the Springfield News Leader and Claudette Riley at the News Leader. So, Brad, this is a nice story of the state spending money to subsidize the mailing of books to pre-K kids. And Dolly Parton herself will be coming to Missouri at the end of the month, Brad.
Really? She's,
Yeah.
She's a fascinating woman. I mean, first off, she's got more talent in her little finger than you and I have in our entire bodies combined. Let's be honest. She's just an incredibly talented woman. And I think what's sort of fascinating to me about it is she has this longevity that transcends, a lot of performers, like go look at all the Partridge Family kind of people. They're big when they're like in their teens and 20s and sometimes even 30s, and then you read about them, when they're in their 40s and 50s, they've been arrested, with a crack pipe, they smashed into a tree in their car and things like that. She's just led this incredibly positive life and done a lot of good things in her life, made a lot of money, helped a lot of people. I think she should be more of a role. Why doesn't she run for president? I'd vote for her in a New York minute.
Brad, you know what I was just going to say is it appears as though she's intentionally avoided a lot of political controversy. I've skimmed her autobiography. She's got like a photo autobiography that's pretty interesting, and I've read it. And honestly, Brad, when I was paging through it, I was looking for a lot of the girl power stuff, like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to be a woman. And imagine how hot, when you think about how hot she was when she was young and how much she probably endured from record labels and stuff like that. And if I recall correctly, her autobiography isn't a bunch of men are terrible, men are horrible, can you believe they objectify us? It was like, well, when you're attractive, men will be interested in you and you learn how to deal with it. Anyway, it seems as though she's intentionally avoided political controversies. Now, I am going to be a curmudgeon about something, Brad. Now, you might not like this and you might disagree with this. Not crazy about the state of Missouri choosing to spend, I think it was $11 million. And I'm not sure if that's annually or if it's just a one-time thing that lasts a few years. Not crazy about the idea of Missouri saying, hey, we got a lot of money. We got a lot of pandemic money. Let's spend $11 million mailing some extra books to kids. I'm a little bit of a curmudgeon about that, Brad. I think that it's great when the private sector does this. But why do we need to spend this money sending books to kids? Don't we spend enough on early childhood education for kids that aren't exactly fortunate? You get what I'm saying?
Well, I'll make you feel better about that. I just say pull $11 million out of the park budget, and that way, you don't have to worry about it. Because you know me and parks, we got too many, and they spend too much money on the parks. Okay, is that done?
Yes, that is our story number 3 today, Brad.
Up a notch to number 2.
Number 2.
Some good news for reporters, Brad, that cover the health industry throughout Missouri. They had their apex in 2020 and 2021 with the whole COVID scare. A headline in the Post-Dispatch today by Annika Miralise. Summer COVID-19 waves arrives in St. Louis. The scale is tough to judge. So, Brad, COVID-19 could be ravaging our area. It could just be another typical passing cold like COVID-19 seems to be. But we don't really know, according to the story, because most tests for COVID are now done in the privacy of your own home. You go to the store, you get a kit, you order it on Amazon, you take it, you say, oh, gee, I have COVID. I got the sniffles for a day. Big deal. Instead of going to a medical facility and having your primary care physician enter your name and medication into a database, right?
Right.
So one way to check is through wastewater, as you know, and we won't be graphic or make, potty jokes here, Brad. But in sewer shed testing, the numbers have risen in the last few weeks, and it looks like the quote-unquote experts anticipate that we'll have higher figures identified through wastewater compared to a month and 2 months ago. So it's kind of a nice story, Brad, because there's a woman here who's an infectious disease expert at Washington University. She serves as vice president and chief quality officer for BJC. And she says, just as a matter of recommendation, that she still chooses to wear masks when she's in crowded places, Brad. Like, when she's on an airport or at an airport or on an airplane, because, you better wear your mask. You better wear your face diaper because God knows you don't want to catch a case of the sniffles. So if you're a mask person, Brad, you're one of the people that you see occasionally wearing a mask like it's 2020 or something, you probably feel pretty good about the resurgence.
Well, John, I have to be honest with you. I on a daily basis, I still see people with masks out in public, and I'm thinking like, okay.
I do too, Brad. Well, you're right. Almost daily I see somebody wearing a mask.
Right. And to me, it's like, okay, knock yourself out. To a certain extent, okay, let me give you my crazy, weird read on that, okay? Let's say that person says to themselves, and this is just hypothetical, but let's say there are people out there you see and I see in public with masks. Let's say that person says, you know what? I'm going to go out in public today and I'm going to wear a mask. But if I didn't wear a mask, I wouldn't go out in public today. I'd say knock yourself out. If that gives you the confidence that you can go out there and be a normal citizen and go to Jack in the Box and McDonald's, the places that I hang out at, and go shop at Schnucks and eat those. And boy, the way I found a new Schnucks with donuts. Oh my God, this is the world's best Schnucks. Anyway, I say more power to them. And I know it's gotten to the point where if you listen to like some of the conservative stations, like for example, you just said it, you've called it a face diaper, and I've heard it like on Tracy's station. Oh, we saw people with masks. Can you believe they've got masks on? To me, it's like, okay, whatever floats your boat. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Once again, if that gives them confidence that they go out and be a public person, more power to them. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I think, for those of us, including me, that still want to mock people who wear masks, and I'll still call it face diapers. And I think it's generally, you're for some people, Brad, I think they really are concerned with their health. I think some people have mental disorders.
But John,
and I also think some people are just generally virtue signalers. Go ahead, Brad.
Here's the ridiculous part of the argument with that. Okay, the ridiculous part of the argument is I not only have one, I have two, because once again, people think that I'm this reckless guy, but I do all sorts of crazy industrial kind of stuff. I have two expensive 3M respirators. I mean, these are like high-end kind of things. Okay, why did I buy them? Years ago, because I was dealing with certain, pollutants in an environment I was at and the whole bit. And I've got here's sort of interesting, people make fun of me when I wear this. I've got the pink filters on, which are like the super, 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 super duper duper filters, okay? And it has two of them. They're like left and right, and then, there's a breathing hole in the middle and the whole bit. It's got two straps, one that goes around the back of your neck, and there's another one that goes up the top of your head. And if I wore that out in public, people go, oh my God, look at that weirdo. But yet, it's extremely effective. So I'm saying that if you're wearing, as you call it, the face diapers, which I think everybody has pretty much proven are not that effective, because truly to be effective, it has to mold onto your face, and most of those masks do not. So in other words, what happens is the air comes in around where it goes to your face because it is not a tight seal. This mask is super tight seal to the point where it completely seals against my face. So if I wore that out in public, people, I mean, even the people wearing the regular mask would go, look at that weirdo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yet,
Go ahead.
well, I remember when the pandemic first started, I was in, of all places, a Wally World, and I had this very mask on, with the two twin pink filters on it, and I walk around a corner, and there's a guy in a full one of the army, you know what I'm talking about, the full face mask.
Like, it looks like a big giant snoot thing, yeah.
With the eye holes, you know what I mean? It covered.
I do
It
know.
went from his scalp line all the way down, had the eye holes in it. Thinking to myself, that dude is prepared, man. He's prepared. That's
Now, if the strap comes a little loose, do you take it directly back to Ann's bra shop?
It's not from Ann's.
Or do you
bra
just
shop.
have? Do you just? You said that it's like dual padded and sealed, right?
John,
And it's got a pink filter, so that says something.
John, let's move on.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Brad. And you know what? That leads very nicely into a story about
Hold it. Let me do it again.
Brad, you hinted at this a couple days ago.
Hold it.
And I just thought it was one of your wacky anecdotes.
Hold it. Let me play this again because I played it over the top of you. Okay, we got to be official
Go
here.
ahead.
Hold on a minute.
The number one.
Okay, there we go.
You mentioned Kurt Bahr the other day.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of heat, man. I'm telling you, he's getting a lot of
He
heat.
is, and I had seen online a couple people were chirping at him, but you know what? People in the Westplex tend to be kind of chirpers, don't they, Brad? I didn't think anything of it. The Post-Dispatch has a story today by, you could call him Ethan Colbert or Ethan Colbert. The headline is, Election Night Glitch Leads to Calls for St. Charles Elections Director to Resign. Now, folks who paid really close attention to the election probably remember that in St. Charles County, a number of results did not come in until 10:30 p.m. St. Charles County is usually one of those counties that has military-like precision as it relates to updating its website with election results quickly. And in this case, according to County Elections Director Kurt Bahr, the third party that they use to tabulate, and I guess I shouldn't say tabulate, to amalgamate all the election results, had a server issue. Essentially, there wasn't enough space on the server or something like that. And it didn't affect, according to the company and according to Kurt Bahr, it did not affect the actual tabulation of the results or the results themselves. Now, Brad, I'm sure you've heard this, but our listeners probably haven't. I know I hadn't heard it till I read this. One part of the controversy is that Kurt Bahr's wife, a woman named Jen Bahr, won election to the party central committee, the Republican Party Central Committee, by one vote.
Yes.
So if you need anything to fuel a conspiracy theory, it would be having the county elections director, the election results come in slowly, and then the county election director's wife win by one vote. So the gentleman who's the head of the St. Charles County Republican Central Committee named Bob Eno, he is not happy about this. He says, quote, "This is ridiculous. We look like fools. St. Charles County looks like fools." And a number of others have weighed in. Now, your friend Mike Elam weighed in on this. Before we get into that, what are your thoughts on this, Brad?
Well, interesting you should bring that up because, once again, I'm a nerd. I listen to other radio stations, and, that's the question we always get in the radio business. But Mr. Eno was on 97.1 this morning at about 6:25, and I listened to him. And,
no way.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He was on with Mark Cox. And the interesting point he brought up was apparently the woman who lost to Kurt Bahr's wife by one vote, she essentially contacted Kurt Bahr and she said, "I want to recount." And they once again, you hear this all the time. Well, when the election was in so many percent, there's an automatic recount. Well, apparently not in St. Charles County. That's what Mr. Eno said that this woman said. And I can't remember her. What was her name? She was up against Kurt Bahr's wife. Do you have that name right there?
There's O'Fallon City Councilwoman named Debbie Cook, and then there's a woman named Katie Stickman.
Well, she's the one that actually lost to Kurt Bahr's wife. Is that Katie Stickman?
Katie Stickman.
Okay,
yeah.
so she, allegedly, this is what this Mr. Eno says, contacted Kurt Bahr, and he essentially said, hey, you got to go to the circuit court, and it's going to cost you $10,000. Now, what Mr. Eno said this morning was that's not necessarily the case, that apparently the way the St. Charles County Election Commission rules are set up is that if you challenge an election, you have to put a $10,000 bond in, essentially, which typically most bonding agencies are going to ask you for 10 to 20% down. So in other words, you're going to have to put down $1,000 to $2,000 of your own hard cash. And quite honestly, I don't understand why that is. I don't understand why, if you're already paying the election commission, you're already paying, Kurt Bahr's salary and all the other people, why it shouldn't be, covered under just, but having said that, I can see already as it comes out of my mouth, I can think to myself, okay, then every nutbag who ran for office, who lost by 10,000 votes, would say, I want a recount, and then they'd spend their.
It keeps the riffraff from filing frivolous recounts.
Right, I guess so. Okay, so anyway, that's what he said, and now once again, I'm not going to. I don't mean to be a jerk about this, but I have had two. Hold on a minute. Not so good personal experience with the election commission. One of them, who is the state rep, the former state rep, you know who I'm talking about, the guy that works at the election
commission. Parkinson.
Yes, and Mr. Bahr himself, who were actually sort of nasty to me. And all I wanted was, I went out there to get a list of the candidates. This is going back to the April election. And, at one point in time, Mr. Parkinson said, I go into his office. I physically walk in. Once again, I'm old school. How do you get stuff done? You walk in people's offices. That is, most of the time, you can't walk into people's offices anymore, like in St. Louis County and St. Charles County. That's a whole other story. But I walked into his office, and he said, he would email me the list. 2 days go by, nothing. I called him a couple times, nothing. I go back out there. Who's standing there? And both times when I walked in, they say, it's on the website. And both Mark Parkinson and both Kurt Bahr said, no, it's not. Look at the website. And they both looked at the website on two separate occasions. Say, you're right, it's not there. And then Kurt Bahr looks at me and says, you'll have to file a Freedom of Information request. I'm going like, okay, give me an FB if you know what that stands for, okay? And I said, how do I do that? And he says, you just did. Okay, play with me, dude. Just play with me. He goes back into his office, 3 keystrokes, 30 seconds later, comes out with my list. Why is it so tough to get stuff like that done? Why is it that, to the point where there's a thing, you always hear these things that like now they're talking about, oh, look at Joe Biden. He's been this great public servant, okay? Let's diagnose that phrase. Public meaning they work for the public. Servant, they mean they work for us, right? Isn't that what happens? If you're like in the slave days, the servants live in the little tiny shack in back of the mansion. Now it's the exact opposite. The servants live in the big building, the White House, the governor's mansion, and the rest of us live in the little shacks behind the big building, right?
I'm hearing you say that a county bureaucrat didn't move at lightning speed to give you a document you needed. And then I'm hearing you say, hold on, Brad. And then I'm hearing you say that Kurt Bahr happened to be walking past, made a witty anecdote about needing to file a sunshine request, then went back to his office, had 3 keystrokes, and you walked out of that office with what you need. That's what I'm hearing you say, right, Brad?
Exactly, John. But once again, why did I have to make 2 trips?
Because you have unrealistic expectations for other people's behavior and their accountability, Brad. It's been a long-running downfall of yours, as you have way too high expectations, particularly as it results to efficiency in government.
Okay.
And it's someone at your age who's been to as many government agencies as you have been should stop walking into a government office and expecting quick, efficient service. Expectations are resentments waiting to happen.
Okay. John always puts me in my place. So if Kurt would have said to me, Brad, go out and run 3 laps around the building, do 10 push-ups, and change your oil in your car, and then I'll give you the list, you would have said, okay. And John would have said, well, Brad, he didn't ask you for anything out of the ordinary, did he? I go, no, John, I guess he didn't. I do know
that you walked out of that office with what you needed thanks to Kurt Bahr. So thank you, Mr. Bahr. This is a good time to say thank you, Mr. Bahr, for providing Brad. And Mark, I know that I know that Brad was nagging you multiple times, and we don't know what your inbox looked like. But thank you for giving Brad what he needed.
Okay. By the way, John, I just want to be right up front. I didn't call. Matter of fact, I called Mike Carter yesterday. When you call his cell phone, believe it or not, I have a cell phone. He says, "Hi, this is Mike Carter, and I rarely ever check this line. So if you really want to try to get a hold of me, I swear to God. Matter of fact, if you want, I'll call it on the air."
I know. We've talked about it on the air before.
So this morning, I texted at 7:09 this morning. "Hey, Mike, Brad Hildebrand here." Although it's interesting, I spelled my name wrong. Brad Hick, Hikdebrand. On the air until 8. Can you call with a question? So we'll see if he calls us back. Well, that's about the Nelly thing. We want to know about the deal.
All right, sounds great.
Remember, you and I talked about that. Why did you have to have a criminal history check if you win a money at the casino? Which to me is like, I don't here's the thing. Shouldn't they be checking you on the inside? I mean, as you're walking in, shouldn't they be criminal history check? Sorry, if you got a criminal history, you can't play the games here. But of course,
jackpot teasers, Brad. They're known. They want to give you. Well, anyway, they're jackpot teasers.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?